Welcome back to the Pro Series Podcast, episode 186. And today we have another recurring guest. His name is Steve Gregory. You may remember him from all the way back in August of 2023. He's a real estate agent here in Pittsburgh. We talk about real estate. We talk about sports. This episode, we are talking about real estate after COVID because COVID was still kind of a thing during that time. We go into all of that, house flipping, all of that. And then he is also the guest this week on Off Topic. So this weekend, you'll see the second half of this episode where we talk about music and everything off topic. But I hope you enjoyed this episode 186. But before we get into this episode, please like, subscribe, and review the Pro Series Podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts. Now I hope you enjoy episode 186 with Steve Gregory. Awesome. Well, Steve, welcome back to the Pro Series Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I was looking back. It was August 22nd of 23.
Long time ago.
A lot of things changed.
A lot of things have changed. Yeah,
I think we were actually recorded in July because I do it so in different, beforehand.
Sure.
But yeah, We talked about sports. I remember that.
Of course.
Real estate.
Yep.
And I want to talk about, we were talking off camera, which we probably should record. I always think I should be recording the conversations before I start recording.
Maybe your teaser.
Yeah.
Be a teaser.
Yeah, like the pre-show.
Maybe just the audio, not the video. But
yeah, probably.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I should start doing that. Or not tell people and just put a camera in the corner of the room.
There you go. There
like
you
a nanny
go.
cam?
Yeah, but then you got to worry about somebody picking their nose and it'd be embarrassing and, who knows.
I have blackmail.
That's true.
You never know what they're going to do to me.
Valid point.
Yeah. So let's pick up how's real estate? I think when we were doing it, we were getting out of COVID, so it was getting a little bit better.
Yeah.
How's real estate now?
It's okay. Last year was a rough year, I think, for all people, whether it be real estate agents, lenders, brokers. I mean, you name it. Everybody kind of felt the pain. Unfortunately, we're living in some uncertain times right now. So I think there's some uneasiness with the market. Right now, we're usually this is the start of the peak season for us.
Yeah.
And it's just I think there's a lot of unknowns. So we're hoping that it still gets better. Mm-hmm. We're expecting for it to get better, but all you got to do is just hold on tight and figure it out.
Keep going.
Yeah, you just got to. You don't change what's been working. So you're still following up with previous clients and doing your due diligence on your end, and hopefully it turns into something, whether it be a sale or a referral or something along those lines.
I feel like building is becoming more and more prominent now, at least up here north.
Yeah.
I feel like every single farm is bought up now.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a regional thing for sure.
Yeah.
I've talked to people not from Pittsburgh, and they feel like one of the big gripes they have about Pittsburgh is one of the few cities that doesn't build up. Surprising. So I had a buddy that just moved to Chicago, and he said, everything's built on top of something else. But Pittsburgh's different. Pittsburgh builds out. Yeah. So I think that's why you're seeing up north where we're at, down south, Washington County, you're just seeing new builds go up left and right, out past the airport, same thing. Yeah. So it's definitely a regional thing. I definitely think it's a little bit more relevant, in certain pockets for sure.
Yeah.
It wasn't too long ago, up to 228 Mars was new.
Nothing. Yeah.
And now look, there's its own city up here. Same thing with Robinson. Robinson was the same way. So you're just going to see that just continue to expand, north as an example, we're seeing Zelienople blow up, it's become Harmony, and then it's just going to keep going further north to Slippery Rock. And it's just going to keep going and going all the way up to Grove City. Yeah. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a very good thing.
We got some willing buyers, hopefully, to buy the builds. But, I think in general, Pittsburgh as a whole, I think is a pretty affordable city. Us here might not feel like it is, but I think comparatively to other cities, it's a very affordable city.
Oh, definitely. And I think more businesses are moving here.
Sure.
I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember which one it was, but Barbara from Shark Tank was getting interviewed. Mm-hmm. And this guy asked her, if you were starting a company right now, where would you go? And she said Pittsburgh.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I will say, and this is one of my sales pitches for out-of-town investors when they're looking to come here, CMU is a major, major driving force to the industries that come here. Uber had a hub here, a headquarter here. Technology is so big and it's so fast as far as its growth is concerned, and a lot of that has to do with CMU.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah,
but
I mean, CMU is one of the top universities in the country, so it's a lot easier to come here and try to recruit the people that are in school or an internship and things of that nature. So we see a lot of rentals, I think, for the most part, in and around Pittsburgh in some way, shape, or form to deal with the young professionals that maybe move here for those jobs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh, I think as a whole I've grown up here, so I love it. I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon, but I think it's a great place to live for sure.
It'd be nice if the weather was a little better.
Well, I just got back from Scottsdale last week.
It's my favorite place.
It's absolutely wonderful down there. But we came. I was down there for 6 days, and every day it was perfect.
Beautiful.
It was perfect.
And your whole body feels better. Just like allergies, your joints, everything just feels better.
And then you come here, and yesterday it snowed here, so it was freezing and it was snowing. I had to find my winter jacket that I put away. Because I thought it was over. The season was over.
I don't think I remember a more bipolar year than we had this year.
Man, I tell you what, it's Pittsburgh. I feel like we're one of the few cities that it's like that. You get this glimmer of it's going to be nice, and then
false hope
because 2 days later it snows. So
we had multiple 70-degree days.
Yeah, in a row. I know. Yeah.
And I thought that was early spring, but no.
It was last week whenever I came back, and I was like, "Oh, I must have brought the good weather back with me." And then
false alarm.
3-4 days later, all of a sudden it's snowing. So here we are. We're doing it. We're surviving.
Yeah. Did you go to the Steeler Bar in Scottsdale?
No, so I have been.
Okay.
So one of my best friends did a traveling nurse. Okay. And he was down there. He actually met his wife, and then since then they've moved back to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
But visiting him down there, that was always a fun thing to do. Old Scottstown's a really fun place. They got a lot of fun bars down there, a lot of good nightlife and everything. But one of the few times that I went and visited, it was during Steelers season, and I just happened to be there on a Sunday. I think it was actually a Thursday night game, and so we ended up going to the Steeler Bar. So
that's perfect.
Yeah, love that place though.
Oh yeah,
love it down there.
I can't even remember what it's called. What if they say like Harold something?
Yeah, it's usually pretty. Most Steeler bars are pretty like old school, Al's or something like that. You know what I mean? Yep.
Just some guy, probably Yinzer, that moved there to retire.
Transplant that moved down there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
That's why Steeler Nation is everywhere for that exact reason.
I don't know. I would love to move to Scottsdale, but I don't know if I could work down in Scottsdale. Like being dressed every day.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you do, right?
That's true.
I'm not so sure I'd be loving wearing a suit every single day.
No. We're just wearing pants every day.
I mean, listen, I was there. I know. Some of the people still called it a little chilly. I went out the one night with my girlfriend, and I was in shorts and a t-shirt, and other people had jackets on, and I'm looking around. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? It is gorgeous right here. Like, it is absolutely stunning tonight, and people are cold. So I think at the end you kind of get used to it. You know, if you're down there for a while, the heat isn't as bad as what we perceive it to be up here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like it's a dry heat. I feel like I could deal with it.
I could deal with it too. It's not like Florida.
I'm not so sure my chocolate lab that I have would love the heat. So he gets hot in, laying in bed when I have the ceiling fan on, let alone in 110, 15, 20 degree weather.
Yeah.
So
she wouldn't do well either.
Yeah. That's why they want to be in Pittsburgh. So we'll just stay here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love Scottsdale. I considered moving there. It's just like such a beautiful area, and the architecture is just awesome.
It's just different. First time I went southwest, I went to Sedona, Arizona, and that place is magical.
I need to go there, yeah.
That place is magical. If I could go anywhere, I would probably go to Sedona, but Scottsdale's a lot of fun too. Yeah. It's just more happening than anything. In Sedona, everything closes at 9:00. So it's one of those it's an old town. It's definitely retiree. They don't want to do anything, be near the hustle and bustle. They probably have one, grocery store in town type thing. But the Red Rock got me. I absolutely love it.
Did you go there for a concert?
Oh, no, just the Red Rock in general.
Oh,
no, the
okay.
Red Rock in general. Red
Okay.
Rock in general. We ended up flying into Vegas, stayed in Vegas for a day and a night, day and a night, and then drove to the south rim of the Grand Canyon,
Okay.
and then we drove the rest of the way down. And the drive from the south rim of the Grand Canyon to Sedona, Arizona, was the most magical thing that I've ever experienced. It is. You're just winding through, and there's just red rock left, red rock right, and then there's just gorgeous like pine trees and it's spectacular.
I love
just
it.
Spectacular. And it was like, yep, I love this place.
Yeah, I love how they respect the landscape with their architecture, because they're like a lot of those houses you don't even see, because they're blending in with the ground.
Yep. Well, when I was down in Scottsdale, hopefully my doctor doesn't see this, but I ended up golfing one day down there. Had my big boot on and everything, and I was looking. It was a real nice resort, and obviously the resort was brand new. But then we're on a couple of the holes, and you look in the mountains, and there's literally houses like in the mountains, and there's like these mansions in the mountains, and it's just like, God, that is just absolutely spectacular, just spectacular. Yeah. But they do. I think they embrace the landscape down there, and they don't try changing it too much. But I also think that's why people want to go there, is because of that too.
Yeah.
So
I even go to the store, like even the stores are like that. Like I think the only McDonald's in the world that doesn't have the yellow arch is in somewhere in Arizona.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
They had to put a turquoise arch because they weren't allowed to have yellow in that town.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of unique stuff about Arizona just as a whole. I don't know if you know, but they're the only state that doesn't do the time change. They never do the.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Smart.
They're the only ones that don't do it. So there's sometimes they're 3 hours, sometimes there's 2 hours behind Pittsburgh.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. The only reason why I know that is because my best friend lived down there for a couple of years. So yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're the only ones that don't do daylight savings time.
What's the weather like this time of year?
It was gorgeous when we were down there. I think the hottest it got up to was like 92 maybe.
Okay.
But that's peak season right now. Yeah. There's a few times I went and visited him, and it was like July, August, and 110, 115's just like 9 a.m.
Yep.
It's over 100 degrees.
That's when I went, August.
You can boil some eggs on the hood of your car if you so choose. But I mean, it's easy for me to say I could deal with that because I don't live there day to day. It would definitely be an adjustment, but in the end, they don't have winters there. So,
but it's kind of like when you were saying, they're cold, but you're warm. It's just kind of like when we get like that first frost or that first like 6-degree day in the fall. Yeah, we're kind of cold.
Yeah, we are. Yeah,
it's just like true. What you're used to and your body adapts to.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They have that dry heat down there. So when it's 80 degrees here with the humidity, it feels like somebody's choking you. Yeah. Whereas down there, it can be 100 and you don't think that it's 100, but then all of a sudden you look down and your sunburn is all hell. Yeah, exactly. So it's just different, and again, just getting used to it more than anything. Yeah. So,
would you ever do real estate anywhere else in the world?
Yeah, I mean, those discussions have been had. Low hanging fruits, probably Florida.
I feel like a lot of people do that.
Yeah, there's 2 people in my brokerage that do that.
Okay.
They have their license in PA and in Florida. Texas as a whole. Texas is one of the fastest growing states right now. Dallas-Fort Worth area in particular. It's just blowing up. No income tax there helps. So your money goes a lot further. But that might be another one. I feel like it would only make sense to split your time in somewhere where it would be easy to go and easy to get to. You know what flight. I mean? Yeah. So I know some folks that are split in West Virginia and Pennsylvania.
That makes sense.
Another person I know that's split in Ohio, doing they do rentals like around Ohio State's campus in Columbus and things of that nature up in Cleveland. So I think when you look at it, it has to make sense. You don't want to necessarily go do it just for the weather. You want to do it from a business perspective. So go in somewhere that isn't mature all the way, so to speak. It's still a growing city. And then there's got to be reasons to go there. Weather is obviously one of those things, right? Yeah. But somebody who's retiring or somebody who wants a beach house or something like that, like obviously you're not going to West Virginia to do that.
No.
Maybe a lake house, but so it just have to be lucrative enough to chew off half your time to go do that and still do here in Pittsburgh kind of a thing. So
I've seen a lot of people in Pittsburgh move to Florida or do both areas.
Well, a lot of people are seasonal, right? So I do think it's probably more common for older agents to do that.
Yeah.
Like the snowbird, right? So, when winter hits here, they go down there and they can still make an income living down there and, come back up here in the summer times kind of a thing. Yeah. I would be hard pressed to work a lot if I would go to do real estate in Arizona. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to go there to work. I want to go there and have fun.
I feel like real estate is that industry where not a lot of people retire from or leave because they just love it so much and they just continue it.
Sure. Well, and it's so easy. I mean, every 2 years we have to renew our license, right? Okay. So on all that is taking 14 hours of continuing education classes, which is mind-numbing. And it's the most ridiculous thing that we have to do. Too? Yeah, you could take them. You could take them as many times as you need to.
Oh, so, okay.
I would say most people in the industry feel like it's a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
So it's super easy to keep your license. Like when you become a real estate agent, you have to take the national exam and then you have to take a state exam. So all you'd have to do is just take another state exam. So if you want to go to Florida, you just have to pass the state exam once you get on there. So it's very easy. Barrier to entry is super easy to do. And then it's even easier to keep your license there. You just got to find a broker that's willing to have you for half the year. And
it's the hard part.
And then you still have to pay all your dues and all the fun stuff that's associated with it. So there's pros and cons to it for sure. So I think if you do enough of business, I think it could make sense. And if your lifestyle is split, like I was saying, half in Pittsburgh, half in Florida, Pittsburgh and Arizona or something like that, it might make a little bit more sense. But,
that makes sense.
We'll just deal with the winners here.
I wish we didn't have to. I think last time we spoke, it being like the end of COVID, there was like a huge increase of people that wanted to be a real estate agent and who got their real estate license. Are you seeing that decrease coming?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And it's already started to happen. Real estate agents, once we were deemed as essential. So there was a long period of time when COVID first hit, only essential workers were allowed to work.
Yep.
So once we were deemed essential, there wasn't a day where you weren't super busy. You didn't have showings left and right. You couldn't go a week without submitting multiple offers. So I think everybody saw that and everybody knows somebody who's a real estate agent, whether it's an aunt or a friend or a friend's brother. And everybody talks about how much money they're making and how easy it is. And it was pretty easy during COVID for sure. And I think that's why you saw the influx of everybody wanting to do the whole real estate thing. It is nice because you can do it as casual as you want. You can do it on weekends or at nights and have a 9 to 5 type job if you want. But when the rubber meets the road, you actually got to put your time in if you actually want to flourish in the industry and actually, make money and make it a career, so to speak, instead of more of a hobby. And I think you saw that with the cyclical, everybody after COVID, everybody wanted to do real estate agent because they were making so much money and how easy it was and how much fun you could have on weekends if you wanted to work or not wanted to work. And then they realized that it wasn't as easy as maybe they thought it was going to be. We're seeing there's still way too many real estate agents in, greater Pittsburgh area. There's way too many casual part-time agents that swoop in and steal a lead from you because their aunt's best friend is a real estate agent and, they were at their graduation party or something like that.
They probably screw something up.
Yeah.
We had that with design as well because everybody saw HGTV.
I can only imagine with that. HGTV ruined everything for you guys.
Oh, it's horrible. But I mean, that's even with real estate too, though. With HGTV, just TV in general.
Well, everybody thinks it's easier, and then you got to actually do it, and then it's not as easy. It's not as lucrative. I've always said with the HGTV shows, I know personally they've made my life a lot more difficult. Yeah. With the flipping, I was just having this conversation with a investor client of mine that the houses that we used to perceive as like ideal candidates for flipping are so much more difficult to now win and to buy them because one, HGTV, two, everybody thinks they know what they're doing and wants to flip it themselves, right? And then, three, with interest rates and things like that, all it did was just move the scale. So this house typically would be a house where, most people wouldn't want to buy it and live in it.
Yeah.
Usually we saw those with like cosmetically dated places and things like that. Well, all of a sudden now, because money's more expensive, now it slides the scale to encompass those properties. And then everybody watches HGTV and everybody thinks that they know what the hell they're doing. And, it's this super lucrative and super easy thing and flip a house in 4 days and all that stuff like that all those shows, portray. It's the furthest thing from reality.
Oh, yeah.
And it made investors in particular, made their lives a lot more difficult, made it a lot less lucrative. So the deals aren't there to be had. You have to be super critical of your numbers and, conservative with your numbers because, you never know when you're going to turn a stone over and all of a sudden you got to replace a sewer line or, there's mold or something along those lines. So,
yeah. And that's the thing. I've had multiple HGTV people on here and they come off and they're telling me like, and I'm asking them about like the number thing because they tell you how much the renovations are on the TV. They're like, you need to take into account, we're on a TV show. If we're showing the brand, the logo or something, we're not paying for it.
Nope.
It's like, so, and that's not in the number, the end number. And consumers don't understand that. No. And because I understand why the TV does it.
Sure,
you have to pay for production and everything. Yeah. But that's one thing you have to think about. That $15,000 kitchen you think you're actually getting is actually a $50,000 kitchen.
Yeah, yeah, and it's for entertainment. That's what I always tell people. They are 100% entertaining. I tell people not to look at it as realistic, but maybe just look at it for the realistic ideas that you see more than anything, right? Because that's not real life. That's not the way it happens. It's like if you do a quick flip by yourself, like you have your contractor. Well, your contractor doesn't have 50 people like in the show. Yeah. That can, while somebody's working on the kitchen, they're also working on the bathroom and remodeling the second floor. Like, they don't have this like massive team that is able to do these things. There might be 5-6 guys that could do it. So, from a time frame standpoint, there's usually a little bit more strategy involved and, allocating resources to this, to do that. And then depending on where you're buying, then you have to get permits and the whole gamut. So it's entertainment.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what I chalk it up to. It's not real. No. It's just entertainment. Yeah. And it, by no means am I throwing shade at somebody who has a show like
I also watch, but it's just you take with a grain of salt.
100%. But I wish more people did.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Because I have those clients that are looking to buy a house and they want it to be HGTV done.
Yeah,
But then they don't want to pay for it. And I'm like, that's not the way it works.
Or they don't want to put work into it.
Or they don't want to put work into it.
They want it to be turnkey. Yeah, you have to have one side or the other. It doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
I've had a bunch of companies I know of here in Pittsburgh and I know elsewhere started during COVID. And then now that like the market's leveled off and people aren't doing as many renovations or they're tighter on the dollar. So they don't want to do renovations and they're like business people and they're looking at their numbers. They're like, we must be doing something wrong. But in reality, it's just, you're in a normal market.
Yeah. You took advantage of the great market, just like, any good business person does, you get it while the getting's good. But at the same time, now things are more realistic and, more, expected to how things are probably going to be until we see a massive change in some way, shape, or form. And I'd hate to see any kind of like recession come or depression or anything like that. But the last time that happened was during COVID, basically, and all they did was just drop the rates until money was basically free, and I made a lot of money from that. So it sucks, but that's that like unknown aspect of okay, well. From a personal standpoint, it might be good for things to happen bad, but you never want to wish that upon, the masses or anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. The one thing I do think like television does well is glamorize the companies or our positions.
Yeah.
They do it a little bit too well, but they're not doing it enough to the trades. And I think that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Finding good quality work is not always an easy thing to do. And we were talking about this before we started. And once you find a good contractor, you don't let them go, and you're hesitant to share with other people because, you want them all to yourself. So I feel like just like everything, I'm sure people have had experiences with real estate agents that weren't good real estate agents.
Yeah. That comes with any profession.
Any profession, right? Yeah. Exactly. But once you find that good person, you should hold on to them. But those guys don't get enough of credit.
No,
they never get enough credit. You find a good plumber that, can do things in a cost efficient way and does good work and it doesn't leak.
Yeah.
It's like I just flipped a house and we had a home inspection. We got under contract. We had a home inspection, and I had no concerns whatsoever with the home inspection because I knew that the guys that did the work were great. And the home inspection came back spotless.
Yeah.
Not a single issue with the home inspection. So it's like those guys, and you're paying them. They're not working for free. But at the same time, like those guys are a good one is worth every penny you pay.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And they're usually like scheduled out.
100%.
Like usually can't get to
100%.
them. My issue is, when they glamorize some type of job on TV, it allows a younger generation to want to do that job. Yeah. And we're getting to this time period where I don't know many contractors our age. I know maybe a handful.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I will be surprised if we don't see. So like whenever I went to school growing up, if I wanted to make money, you had to go to school and you had to get a degree. Like that was like the portrayal, right? Mm-hmm. I do think the mindset behind that is definitely changing.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I think for the better, sometimes I think for the worst. I think personally, I think the whole influencer thing, I think is a little glamorized, like you were saying, right? Everybody thinks that they're going to, become the next influencer. But I do think you're starting to see more kids get pushed towards a trade because it is as guarantee as you get.
Yeah.
You join a union, or even if you don't want to join a union, like everybody's always going to need roofers. Everybody's always going to need plumbers and electricians and things like that. So I do think there's going to be, and maybe it already started, I do think there's going to be a slight change in evolution of kids that are graduating high school trying to figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to go to college? Are they going to go to trade school? Or are they going to just come out and join a union? Like what exactly they're going to do?
Yeah.
Because that is a very safe, a very solid and foundational job to have, because it's always going to be needed.
Oh yeah.
I went to school for marketing. Everybody can do their own marketing at this point with the, social media is the driving force of that. Everybody can really do their own social marketing. You don't really need to know how to market because there's, chat GTP and AI and all this other stuff that kind of just gives you the baseline for it, right?
Yeah.
So I do think you're going to see a change, and maybe you already have seen a change towards like trade. And I think it would be for the better too.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I think it all starts at home though. For the most part. I mean, schools as well, school counselors and stuff, but I think it all comes down to your parents and like how they raise you.
Sure. And I don't think there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Like, I was the first person in my family to graduate college.
Okay.
My dad was in financing his entire life, owned his own business. And then, during hard times, then he went into the corporate world for financing and things like that. And, never once did he ever tell me that I needed to go to school, but it was kind of this like underlying implied, like, you want a good career, you got to go to school kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I have friends that their dads work with their hands and was in trade, and they did the same thing. So I do think the mold that your parents provide, I think definitely shapes you. But who knows? It'll be interesting because, you and I are at the age where, start to have kids and whatnot and think about what we're doing. What kind of mold are we going to have for our kids when we start having kids? It's like, how our parents were raised a lot different than how we were raised, how's that going to influence the next generation too? So
it's all based off your belief system.
100%.
Your parent might have saw someone that really struggled as a contractor or something. And they didn't want that for their kid.
Sure.
They just want the best for their kid.
Sure. No doubt. It's like I said, it's going to be, and again, there's so many variables that come into play. I mean, our parents grew up, during wars and, super
completely different.
Yeah. Completely different time than we are. So
and we got the same for us to our kids.
Yeah. Very true. I mean, we had to deal with COVID. Don't get me wrong, but we got it pretty good compared to what our parents and our grandparents had to go through,
especially our grandparents,
compete in wars and stuff like that. So
drafts.
Yeah, thankfully hopefully we don't go back to the draft system, but that would.
What was the age limit on that back in the day?
Well, I knew you had to be 18. I don't know if there was a top number. I know you couldn't have any kind of what they would consider a disability. So if you were colorblind, you weren't allowed.
It was flat-footed. You couldn't do it, which is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. We've never seen that, especially after 9/11 and all that stuff.
Well, other countries, it's completely different. I was just listening to a podcast the other day. Who the hell was it? It was Switzerland.
Okay.
Once you turn 18, you have to go to the military.
You have to?
You have to go to the military.
And that's the country that has free healthcare, free pretty much everything?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
They, the purpose of the episode was talking about gun violence.
Mm-hmm.
And they, I think it was 2013 was the last time they had what was considered a mass shooting.
Wow.
And we average one a day in the United States. So they went there and they were talking to the people there, and it was the gist of it was gun responsibility.
Yeah.
They didn't limit people the guns that they could have, how many they could have, but it was the education surrounding it. And it was because when you became 18, you had to join the military. They taught you how to handle a gun and how to use a gun and all the elements around it. And it was funny because on the podcast, they went at some huge festival.
Yeah.
And it's a festival. It's purely guns. Everybody has their own gun. And the rule in Switzerland is you can have your gun, but it can never be loaded until you're going to use it. So they're at this festival. And this American who's doing the podcast is over there, and there's people are drinking beer. They're getting drunk and everything like that. And all these guns are there. And there's these young kids that have these guns and everything like that. Yeah. Yeah. Dang. But they don't have mass shootings. And it's just it was I'm sorry, what? I had a hard time wrapping my head around it. But again, if that's kind of stuff is instilled in you and educate you about those kinds of things, how to handle a gun and things like that, then I guess it probably does make sense if you start peeling back the curtains a little bit. So
dang.
Yeah.
And that's men and women have to go into the military?
I think it was just men.
Okay.
I think it was men was the only one that was required. Don't hold me to that, but that's and to be honest with you, that's pretty common. I don't know if you remember, Oli Mata used to play for the Penguins.
Mm-mm.
And what the hell was the situation? Something had to happen. I think the Penguins had to make the playoffs or the Stanley Cup or something like that. And if they didn't, he was going to have to go back to Finland.
Oh, I do remember this.
He was going to have to go back to Finland because his military requirements were there or whatnot.
Yeah.
And if he was if he was employed by somebody, if he was employed by somebody, then he didn't have to, or something along those lines, right?
Oh, okay.
But most countries, there's a very large number of countries that require once you're 18 that you have to go and do some kind of service for your military. And I don't think it's anything you don't have to enlist for 10 years or anything like that, but you have to go and you have to do your thing. So
what's she gonna do?
Yep.
She's all caught up in the wires.
Yep, she is.
Noah.
But that's why we love them. Huh?
She, for some reason, every single time I come down here, she doesn't come down here unless I'm recording a podcast. She'll just book it down here.
She just wants to be involved. That's all. Dad,
okay.
pay
It's
attention
okay.
to me.
Go lay down. Go lay down. Oh, that's funny.
What will we do without him? We don't know. Hopefully we don't have to anytime soon.
Oh my God, that is...
I see stuff on Instagram all the time.
I was going to say, I see some on TikTok,
Yeah.
like videos of like...
Yeah. Well, it's just like this, like, there's one my sister sent because my sister has a lab too. And she was like, the gist of the poem, it's like a poem and it's over top of like people with videos of their dogs, whatever. And it's just like proof that a dog lives here kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I start watching it and I'm like, nope, I know where this is going.
Yeah. No thanks.
Nope.
It's like
sweet sediment, but I'm not ready to think about that. Nope.
Yeah. It's like
nope.
Marley and Me.
Yeah.
I've watched that once and that's enough.
That's all I need to watch.
No.
Yep. Bawled my eyes out when the end came. Absolutely bawled my eyes out.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
It's worse than like losing a human.
I would make the argument, yes.
Yeah. And people
Thankfully, I haven't, knock on wood, haven't had lost, somebody that's been super close to me in a while,
neither,
right?
I guess I should knock on
wood. But
wood.
At the same time, like, I'm not going to be in a good place whenever I don't have my dude anymore. So
I can't do it.
Nope. I don't like to think about it.
No.
We just enjoy him every day.
Well, let's talk about music now.
Let's do music. Yes.
If you enjoyed this episode 186 with Steve Gregory, stay tuned this weekend. He is also the guest on Off Topic. We talk about concerts, music, country music, really everything. It was just a conversation. We just started to record. Great for Off Topic. So I hope you enjoyed that as well. But stay tuned. It will be coming out this weekend.